Lincoln-Douglas debates. In the second debate, which occurred at Freeport, the real issues of the contest were presented. Here for the first time was brought forward that momentous question which in less than 2 years afterwards gave to Mr. Lincoln the presidency of the United States. This was the Lecompton Constitution of Kansas, and it was immediately introduced into the Union as a completed organic law of a state which was yet unborn. The plan of this Constitution was to introduce slavery into the new state, making it at once a slave state, whereas the opposite party in Kansas desired a free state. The Democratic Party of Illinois approved the Lecompton Constitution, and Mr. Douglas advocated its adoption. On the other hand, the Republican Party of Illinois demanded that the Constitution should be rejected and that the government of the new state should be entrusted to free men only. Hence the controversy between the two great leaders. And the thing was aggravated by the proposition of Senator James Lane, a strong anti-slavery Democrat, that if Mr. Lincoln should be elected senator, he would guarantee to admit Kansas as a free state. Mr. Lincoln denied that he had been a party to this understanding, and that he had no authority to admit any state against the wishes of the people therein. Thus, the two great opponents were fairly locked together on the momentous question of slavery. For 3 hours, Mr. Lincoln talked. His opening remarks related to Stephen Douglas's course in connection with the Lecompton Constitution, and Mr. Douglas followed with an argument directed against Mr. Lincoln's position. The latter then replied to Mr. Douglas's speech, and the debate closed with a half-hour's final summing up on each side. Mr. Lincoln's speech contained, according to an eyewitness, the most brilliant, masterly, and crushing logic that I ever heard. His voice rose frequently to a powerful key. His gestures were earnest and effective. Mr. Douglas was not so happy in his delivery, though he maintained his popularity with the audience. After the debate, Mr. Lincoln left Freeport and traveled toward Chicago, his carriage following, crowded with admirers. Mr. Douglas pursued his journey to Chicago, and the impression prevailed that he had been worsted in the encounter. At Charleston, in the third debate, Mr. Douglas opened the discussion, his remarks being mainly directed against Mr. Lincoln's views on the right of the people of a territory to decide for themselves concerning slavery. Mr. Lincoln replied at length, giving reasons for his views, insisting that he had been misunderstood in his previous position. The closing arguments of the two candidates were listened to attentively. Though the result of this debate, like the preceding one, was considered favorable to Mr. Lincoln, there were doubtless many present who thought that the verdict might go the other way. In a letter written to a friend in 1859, Mr. Lincoln said, "I think I have met him at all issues. I have hardly anything to add to what I have said already. I do not know that any one man of all who have heard me has been able to withstand the conclusion that Douglas has stolen the best part of his Kansas program from the Republican Party and is trying to make a mask to hide his face. This time, I let him alone for a whole hour on the stump, and he has not pretended to deny or explain or correct any part of my statement of his position." This was evidently referring to the charges of stealing the Kansas program, which were prominently put forward by Mr. Lincoln at this debate. On the 17th of September, Mr. Lincoln and Mr. Douglas met at Jonesboro. The subject of the Lecompton Constitution was continued. Mr. Lincoln contended that Congress had no right to force the Lecompton Constitution on the people of Kansas and criticized Mr. Douglas for supporting it. Mr. Douglas defended the Lecompton Constitution, holding that Congress had the right to force it on the people of Kansas, as they had done in the case of Utah. The time for the speeches on both sides was an hour and a half, and there were no summing up speeches. The debate was earnest and exciting, both gentlemen being much applauded. Their relative positions on the great question of slavery was the main topic of discussion. From Jonesboro, the two opposing leaders went to Galesburg, where the sixth debate took place. The subject of the Lecompton Constitution was continued. The speakers discussed the Dred Scott decision and the right of the people of Kansas to determine for themselves whether they would have slavery or not. Mr. Lincoln held that they had the right, and Mr. Douglas argued that they had not. In discussing the Dred Scott case, Mr. Lincoln said, "Mr. Douglas says that we are to judge the acts of the people of Kansas by the decision of this so-called Supreme Court. I say we are to judge the decision of that court by the acts of the people of Kansas." In this debate, Mr. Lincoln said, "We want no surrender here. The Missouri Compromise line shall not be disturbed." It was evident that the sympathies of the audience were with Mr. Lincoln. At the close, he extended his hand to Mr. Douglas, who refused to take it, saying, "I don't want to shake hands with you." Mr. Lincoln then remarked, "Well, that shows what our politics have come to. We can't even meet one another civilly." The seventh and last debate occurred at Alton, near the Wisconsin state line. It was evidently of less interest than the other debates, as both candidates had previously taken their respective stands, and there was no longer anything new or startling to be said. Nevertheless, both speakers were warmly applauded. Mr. Lincoln, who was in favor of free Kansas, won the last debate. The Alton debate occurred on October. It may be well to remark here that the Alton debate was the last time these two great men ever met upon the public stage. 2 years afterwards, they were pitted against each other in the presidential campaign of 1860, but in different fields. Mr. Lincoln was nominated by the Republican Party, and Mr. Douglas was nominated by the Democratic Party. Mr. Lincoln was elected, and Mr. Douglas died in 1861. Mr. Lincoln was shot and killed in 1865. Though Mr. Lincoln lost the senatorial contest with Mr. Douglas, he gained something infinitely greater, a national reputation, which resulted in his election to the presidency of the United States. It was said of Mr. Lincoln, "He was a statesman without a statesman's craftiness, politician without a politician's meanness. A great man without a great man's vices, a philanthropist without a philanthropist's dreams, a Christian without pretensions, a ruler without the pride of place or power, an ambitious man without selfishness, and a successful man without vanity."